Hi everybody, and welcome today to Best Practice Institute webinar, A Lean, Mean Recruiting Machine with Zachary Misko. I'm Louis Carter. I'm founder and CEO of Best Practice Institute, and it's my pleasure to present to you today Zachary. Zachary Misko is the Global RPO Director and member of the leadership team at Kelly Services Incorporated, Outsourcing and Consulting Group, that's OCG. Recruitment Process Outsourcing Business Unit. Kelly OCG RPO provides outsourced hiring process management and human resources skills to a variety of different companies. As a global RPO director, Zachary works with Fortune 500 clients throughout the world to develop and implement processes that improve and drive the hiring process, recruitment, onboarding, retention, and selection functions within a company. He also works to provide Kelly OCG RPO and its employees with leadership and support as they continue to grow. Prior to joining Kelly Services, Zachary managed human resource functions at worldwide leader in biotechnology and life sciences, Promega Corp, Madison, Wisconsin, and was employed as the Senior Training Manager for Land's End in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. And it's my pleasure to announce to you today one of the contributors to Best Practices in Talent Management book coming out, Josie Bass book, BTI book, who's providing a case study on General Electric, his work with General Electric. Zachary Misko. Zachary, the floor is yours.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Lou. And good morning, everyone. Obviously, we've had a huge economic shift, and over the past 12 months, the economic situation has changed dramatically. Last year, in a survey conducted by our company and the HROA organization, the Human Resource Outsourcing Association, over 70% of the respondents cited recruitment difficulties. And this year, interestingly enough, the global figures dropped to just 54%, however, slightly higher within the European respondents at 67%. So we're still seeing, even in this economy, in the economic situation, that there is recruitment activity. And we know as a company within Kelly OCG, we may not be as busy as we were a year ago in terms of the number of positions open, but we certainly are still very active in pursuing opportunities to fill positions. And we're taking a longer-term outlook right now. And when this recession passes, as it will, HR departments around the world will downsize significantly. And HR departments which have downsized in the lean times will be overwhelmed with the complexities of identifying and onboarding the quality and quantity of talent they need to fuel their company's renewed growth. So how do we best spend our time now when hiring is down and there's a sharp eye on cost, which is just unavoidable? And through lean methodologies, that's one of the things that companies can afford to invest in now to continue to recruit in this economy and to ensure they are prepared for the future. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about lean methodologies, as well as then how we've applied lean within one of our client companies at General Electric. And so from a agenda standpoint, I will give you a little bit of background on Kelly. We'll understand lean. I'll give you a very high-level overview of what lean is. Then I'll kind of break it up so we have a little more interaction in terms of an activity to help you apply and understand lean. And then I'll talk to you about what we did at GE Healthcare. So let's begin. There will be an opportunity to ask questions, time permitting, at the end. If we don't have time, there will be my email and contact information, so you can certainly follow up and talk to me at a later point. Just very quickly, who are we? 100% of our business is dedicated to RPO. Program sizes range from 75 to 7,000 hires annually with the companies that we support. It's a seamless experience. We become the company, whether that's GE, whether that's Case New Holland, or any one of the Fortune 500 companies that we support, and employ over 550 recruitment and HR professionals across 43 sites nationwide and in 27 countries. And we were recently nominated for RPO Provider of the Year through HROA, and you can see some of the countries and territories that we have experience in. Moving on to lean. And I guess now might be a good time to take a quick poll. And for those people that are on the call today, Are you familiar with lean methodology? I'd just like to understand, have you utilized lean methodology, or do you at least understand, or do you know what that concept is? So if you'd answer now. So, okay, polls are still open. You haven't voted, vote now. We'll close the polls. And the results, it looks like the majority of the people are familiar with lean methodology. So without having the interaction, know exactly what level of familiarity you do have, let me just talk to you about building a lean culture and give you the high-level overview of where we kind of started to ensure that we understood lean before we began introducing it into the HR concepts. So let me give you into some background and key points of lean to set the stage. Lean is the most powerful and effective way to build and sustain continuously improving processes. So using lean, any business in any industry, regardless of the size or type, can improve itself continuously over the long term. And these advancements were first pioneered at the Toyota Motor Corporation over 50 years ago, and lean is now established as the most consistently successful approach to organizing and operating any enterprise. From a philosophy standpoint, it is a philosophy and a proven long-term approach. It aligns everything in the business to deliver increasing customer value. So it's about orienting the people and systems to deliver a continuous stream of value to the customer, as well as eliminate waste and the deficiencies within the process. And which is why I mentioned earlier, given these economic times, perfect time when things may be slower for some companies from a recruitment and sheer number standpoint. Now is a great time to better understand and incorporate these philosophies that can reduce steps in the process, eliminate some of the waste, as well as work to ensure that there are some cost reductions immediately and you're prepared when the economy does rebound. Think of lean as a fitness program for your business and kind of like an exercise regimen for your body. Lean's a way to get your business fit for life through a focus on your customer, the implementation of new business practices, as well as an ongoing commitment to continuous improvement. One thing lean is not a fad or a diet. It's not something that you can try for 6 weeks and hope to see some great results and potentially stop and sustain those. It is a way of life, so it's something that you really have to have a strong commitment to before you begin. And as a business strategy, lean is based on satisfying the customer by delivering quality products and services that are several things that are just what the customer needs, when the customer needs them, in the amount required at the right price, using minimum materials, equipment, labor, space, time, all those things that are important to us today. And the lean practices enable an organization to reduce its development cycles and produce higher quality products and services at lower costs while utilizing those resources more efficiently. As I talk more specifically about the case study that will be made available to all participants on this call, Best Practice Institute will email that to everyone. 2-page case study on our staffing journey to become best in class with GE. You'll see that we were able to reduce our overall number of resources in recruitment by 50%. And not necessarily because the hiring numbers are down. There's still quite a bit of hiring activity, but because we were able to make a lot of process improvements. And I'll demonstrate specifically how lean was applied to the recruitment process, with the end product in this case obviously being a successful hire. I'm going to mention several words or lean Japanese terms. And if you're familiar with lean, you may be familiar with words like Kaizen or Kanban, Hoshin. And as we go through the presentation, you'll see some of these words. I'll work to make sure I'm defining those. One that I'd like to define initially is muda. Muda is waste. And you don't want to use anything more than you really need to get the customer what they require. Anything more than that absolute minimum from a lean methodology standpoint within that process is considered waste. So lean is found wherever there's waste and anywhere there's an opportunity for improvement. So basically, lean's pretty much found everywhere. And I mentioned it becomes a way of life. It's not a fad or a diet. It does, in fact, produce instant results, and you can see some immediate improvement. But to sustain that improvement, you must be in the game for the long haul. Lean's a lifestyle change that requires vigilance, and if Lean were a race, it'd probably be more like the tortoise than the hare. And in Lean, steady incremental improvements win over the long term. And again, it's not to say that you won't experience a burst of speed along some of the stretches, but it's a commitment over a much longer period of time. Again, going back to the origin of Lean, a definition, very simply stated, Lean's a strategy for maximizing value to customers, both internal and external. I mentioned Toyota Production Systems and the fact that over 50 years ago that was something that they introduced. Well, over the recent probably 2 to 3 years, it's become much more prevalent in those companies that are familiar with ISO, with Six Sigma, now are utilizing or looking into utilizing things like Lean. Although it started in manufacturing, it's really been developed into the total business system, and we've been very successful in applying these methodologies into the human resources aspect, and specifically within the recruitment arena. A lot of people, when I talk about Lean, they believe they have an idea of what it is, and so I thought I'd kind of dispel some of those myths right away and talk about what Lean is not and what it is. And I think one of the things from a standpoint of what it is not, Lean is not clean. Many people understand and are familiar with what's referred to as 5S. And to initiate the required culture shift, in a Lean principle, 5S is typically introduced as a foundation for all improvements. 5S is defined as 5 different words that, you guessed it, begin with the letter S: sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And because that typically is introduced as a foundation for all improvement to ensure that from the standpoint of your physical work location being in order, having consistency in how data and materials are kept and retained in file areas and or general office space as well as individual desks, maintaining and improving, ensuring that work areas are maintained and sorted and set in order at all times, items are ranged according to how they will be used, and separation of necessary items from unnecessary items occurs. And because of that, a lot of times there's this perception that, oh gosh, when we're utilizing a Lean methodology, this 5S that I've heard a lot about because it's very tangible, you can see it, Lean is just a way to become clean and to become more organized. And it really is not. That's a founding principle of what typically starts with the improvements. But that is not what Lean is in an encompassing standpoint at all. It is a way of thinking, and it's a focus on total customer satisfaction. I mentioned it's about ensuring a continuous flow of product, and in this case, that flow is candidates to ensure an end product of a hire. And another way to think about it is, water from a tap. When you go to your sink and you turn the water on, you expect water as that end user or customer. You may not be concerned with how it's getting there, how it's being filtered, how it's coming through your pipes, where it's coming from, and all the details that go to get that water to come out of that faucet. You just want that end result of continuous flow so that you have that product anytime you need it. And that's kind of what we strive for when we looked at how do we implement Lean within recruitment and how do we utilize that within an HR function. How do we ensure we have a continuous flow of candidates to ensure that we are prepared and can deliver those candidates in a timely and cost-effective manner to the hiring managers. So let's take a break from the presentation mode and kind of give you an opportunity to play with Lean and some of the methodologies a little bit. As I said, the Lean practices enable an organization to reduce development cycles, producing higher quality products and services at lower cost to utilize the resources more efficiently. So what does that really mean and how do you do that? I'm going to take you through a quick and just very basic activity to kind of help put Lean thinking and methodologies into perspective. So let's pretend that it's the first day in the job, and you're here in the Human Resources Department, and you just started. Your boss is over your shoulder. I'll play the role of the boss for today, and you're given some tasks. And first task is to help put some of the job requisitions in order. And you'll see in a moment I'm going to put a slide up, and it's going to have several numbers. And what I'm asking for as your boss is for you to very quickly locate and put in order from lowest to highest the number requisitions 1 through 49. So you'll see several numbers, and if you can just maybe point with your finger kind of on the screen. In person I use paper and have people actually circle the numbers. Take the time now to locate numbers 1 through 49, requisitions 1 through 49 in order. Notice that there's no rhyme or reason to how the numbers are placed. They're upside down, they're in different orders, they're different sizes, and your boss is looking over your shoulder. Sometimes it may be an OCCP auditor or a hiring manager who needs immediate information on a requisition, and in many cases we found it's very difficult for people to very quickly gather the information needed in a timely manner. So to apply lean principles to this, if you look at this next slide, what we do is we'll remove some waste. And once waste is removed, you can very clearly see that, gosh, I asked you to find requisition numbers 1 through 49, but I noticed there are some numbers above 49. And if that's not a part of what I need in the process and remove those, let's see how quickly now you can look at your screen and find numbers 1 through 49 in order. I would imagine through removing much of that waste and those unnecessary job requisitions, and now it becomes slightly easier for you to locate job requisitions in order 1 through 49. Let's take it a step further. As I talked about within 5S, let's create some order. So we eliminated waste. Now, from a lean perspective, creating some order and efficiency to further streamline the process would be another step that you might conduct through utilizing lean philosophies. And now that I create some order, in this slide that's up here, you see the 9 block, I bet it's even easier now. We're a step in the right direction again for you to find numbers 1 through 49 in order. And you'll notice it's easier because now there's a natural progression. You see a pattern. You begin to see that 1 is in the upper right-hand corner, 2 is in the middle, 3 in the lower, etc. And it's easier for you to follow along knowing that that next number you need is going to be in that next location. Taking it a step further, we've had several Kaizen events, Kaizen being kind of an incremental continuous improvement. And now we have a lean system in place that we are sustaining. And that might look something like this. So now when someone comes to you and says, gosh, can you pull requisition number 26, or can you put these in order? It's done. It's very easy for you to identify, find the information and the tools and resources that you need because you've eliminated waste, you've set an order, and you've created some consistency and throughout the process. Let's go back to that initial slide and let's talk about from an audit standpoint and apply how through other vehicle might be important or beneficial to have lean methodologies in place. And let's say an audit's required and it's your job to pull 2 requisitions for review by the OFCCP. Let's assume you're a federal contractor and they claim that there are 2 requisition records that were not submitted and they're missing in the sequence of requisitions from 1 through 49. And you have to very easily and quickly identify the 2 missing requisition numbers. So when I put that screen back up, I've actually removed 2 numbers. Can you very quickly tell me which 2 numbers I've removed? Probably not. A little more difficult. It takes some time. You may have to, start crossing out, starting with 1 to count to see which numbers are missing, because we haven't identified a lean process. However, once we've leaned the process, it's much easier to find when there is missing recs or when there are errors within the process. Errors become much more easily or quickly identifiable when you have a lean process in place, and that might look something like this. It's very obvious for you to see now that requisitions number 18 and 42 are the 2 requisitions that are missing, or they may not have been submitted in your batch to the required compliance departments. So kind of a hypothetical example, but hopefully through those practical examples, kind of helps you understand how applying some of the lean methodologies may improve your ability to be effective within recruitment. All right, let's get into the kind of case study and the context of where we were when we started. So in working with GE, here's kind of what we were experiencing within the healthcare division. The environment that we had, there were several departments that are recruiters using or wanting many different methods. Let me start by saying that this is a 10-year relationship that GE Healthcare and Kelly OCG have been involved in. So not something new that we came in off the street, but something that as we continue to sustain, process, improve, and reduce cost and measure our performance in recruitment year over year, this was one way that we really felt we could make an impact. We had long lead times. There was a lot of rework. We had several different technology tools that we were utilizing, and there was a large administrative burden. We realized we had a lot of administrative tasks that both the recruiters as well as our logistics specialists, the folks that complete the backgrounds and the drug and the drug screens and the offer letters, were conducting. And all of that leading to the high level of process variation, as we had remote recruiters, we had in-house and outsourced recruitment model, so there were both GE employees as well as Kelly OCG employees. The mix was probably about 85% Kelly OCG and 15% GE from a human resources recruitment standpoint. Facility constraints. Much of the team was housed at the Waukesha headquarters of the GE Healthcare facility. And as requisitions continued to increase, we needed to hire additional recruiters. We didn't have anywhere to put them. So we were beginning to use both on-site and remote team members. Although we did have a centralized staffing organization, it was comprised of kind of a bundled or a diverse team of people at several locations. The scope of the positions we were hiring, all U.S., and management of the internal and external hires. So at about approximately 4,000 per year, from entry level to executive. And the scope of the process was job posting to the time the employee got that first paycheck. So recruitment was really involved to ensure that that process was seen and followed through from end to end. So that's the context of where we were when we started this journey. So, and when did we start this journey? In 2006. We started this journey. So again, an evolution. You'll see it 2009 and beyond. We continue to have lean, utilizing lean and continuing to review, refine, and implement new lean methodologies. In 2006, however, we began with a mindset. And that mindset, you see a few bullets up there, is about a lot of things. And one of the first things we started with was a value stream mapping process. And I'll talk a little bit more about the value stream mapping process and what that activity encompassed in just a moment. We implemented 5S. As I talked about, it was first applied to the physical environment, and unlimiting very basic things like unneeded storage and files. And, there's, as I said, a lot of initial concern. Everyone wanted to know how all this cleaning is beneficial. But it soon became evident that the discipline to sustain 5S was necessary to sustain a change in the recruitment and staffing culture to ensure continuous improvement. Through that, we were able to redesign the facility flow. We had some initial process simplifications via Kaizens as a result of the value stream map. There were weekly audits of all of the new standards put in place, and both myself as well as the Global Director for Talent Acquisition within GE Healthcare, who were two of the key stakeholders and involved within this implementation, we conducted audits weekly and ensured that the team knew they were being audited, but they were also rewarded when they had successful audits to ensure that they were each individually and as a team utilizing 5S, for example, within their workstation and within the recruitment office. Visual management began, things like daily stand-up meetings, ensuring that metrics were visible for all of the department to see. And we started with team and we moved into individual transparency, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Rapidly moved into Kaizen events. We had engagement from our remote recruiters. So as I mentioned, it was important to engage in part of the entire team, not just those that were there that could physically participate in a 5S implementation, but they were part of the process, that they were engaged. We then did layered audits by the teams and different standards. We had weekly statistical analysis, and we had customer Kaizen teams. And that was one of the things that was very important, is to include the hiring managers as well as the human resource managers. And then we even came back several months later and said, okay, we used the value stream map or VSM process on what we do as a recruitment team, but let's use it to analyze what our systems and suppliers are doing for us. So that initial mindset turned into some of the behaviors I talked to. I'll mention and describe more in terms of what an Anbon and flag system are. And then we moved, it took about 2 years to move into some of that individual transparency, where now it was not just team metrics that were posted, but it was individual metrics about cycle time and cost per source, customer satisfaction about each of the individual recruiters that's being posted on a weekly and monthly basis. Yeah, it can create some internal competition, but healthy competition. And people became very comfortable with the transparency that is a big part of Lean and that Lean culture. And today, we're focusing on continuing customer Kaizens. We're looking at moving and utilizing Lean methodologies globally. And we've got several Lean boot camps to ensure that our customer within the organization understands the importance of Lean and how to ensure they're a good partner. They're applying some of those same methodologies as they work with us within the recruitment process. So I talked about Value Stream Map, and Value Stream Map, the diagnostic visualizations. You can see in the 3 pictures here, this is our actual event that we conducted. And you can see this process map, and that's a piece of it in that first picture. But a Value Stream Map is a big part, an important part of Lean, and utilizing the different icons. So whether it be, it's difficult to see with their process boxes and outside sources and material pushes and Kaizen bursts that you notate on this map. And by defining as a group, and this group of people, and you see in this room, it took 3 days. It was a 3-day event, 8 hours a day, and these people were basically locked in a room, and we delivered food at regular intervals to keep them going. And they mapped out this process. So it was a combination of key members within the recruitment team, as well as human resources and hiring managers that we talked to help educate on Lean, and as they become a part of this process, to ensure that we are mapping the entire system from start to finish, not only from our perspective, but from the perspective of our customer as well. This really served as a basis then for our future state, and by day 3, we were able to take that current state value stream process map and easily see, and kind of like the old activity when you're in a room with several people on your team and you take a ball string and you say, okay, who starts the process? You do. Okay, you take this string, and now where does the requisition go from here? Okay, it goes to you, and you begin to see as the string is tied from one person to the next that, wow, there's a lot of overlap, and it comes back to you at 3 different times. And why not go over here before we, finish the steps with this person? That's kind of similar to what you're seeing as your value stream mapping as well. And it really helped make some of that waste and redundancy visible, so we can understand how we can improve our business processes. We were able to, through this activity, by the way, reduce the steps in our process by about 40%, eliminating those steps that before, we thought we can't do without, that we realized very quickly were unnecessary to the effective process of hiring a new employee. Kaizen is the practice of making changes, monitoring results, and adjusting as needed. So we developed what we call Kaizen teams. So you may be a leader of a Kaizen team that is working on the candidate slate, so the presentation of candidates for a specific position. You may be on a team that's identifying the offer logistics process. And we have several of these Kaizen teams that work towards tri-storming. So you've heard brainstorming, but it's try-storming. Let's try things. And you do very, very small experiments that are implemented very quickly. We rapidly review, and if it doesn't work, we move on to what might be a better solution. And as it says here, we identified and conducted root cause analysis and implemented 50 process improvements via these Kaizen events. And currently today, we've got 26 in-process Kaizens that are still functioning today because it's an ongoing process. And we're continuing to challenge ourselves. Gosh, look what we could do 2 years ago, 3 years ago. How do we continue to sustain and continue to challenge ourselves and our vendors or suppliers to do better? I mentioned the candidate slate, so here's an example of how we were able to, through Kaizen, improve this process. It involved multiple technologies. And you can see technology usage, we reduced by 50%. We realized there was some redundancy or things that as we talked to the business, they didn't care that we did or need. But no one had ever asked that question to confirm why we're doing it this way, why we're using that technology. From a compliance standpoint, we realized we could reduce steps there. And phone screen storage, we cut in third. So we had a 56% reduction in total time and cost spent in these multiple forms and inputs, moving to a standard form and input for the candidate slate process to relay that to the hiring manager so they could see what their candidate funnel looked like, as well as the key candidates on that slate for them to review or determine which of those few they may want to bring in the interview. So that was a key improvement through a Kaizen for us. Standards, when you talk about Kaizen, there's one tool, one process, standard documents. You're working to move towards a lot of standardization, and basically standardizing work and processes to ensure consistency in both the input and the output is a very important part of Lean to ensure that success. And keeping a strong focus on the end in mind, and the customer experience, making sure that it's consistent, regardless of the recruiter, in this case, that they work with, or the position that they're filling, that there's some consistency in that recruitment process. So I know, as I filled a position last month, and I know what that's going to look and feel like. Similar to what you might expect if you go to Starbucks. You walk into a Starbucks, whether you're on vacation or whether it's one down the road, and you expect that skinny vanilla latte or whatever your drink of choice is to taste the same. And Starbucks spends a lot of time to ensure that through water filtration and the product, et cetera, that there is some level of consistency in the end product that they're delivering to the customer. Same thing here. We recognize the importance of, while you may work with several recruiters, while you may have many different types of position that you may be responsible for hiring, you should have some consistency in that process and ultimately end product. Visual management. This has kind of really changed the look and feel of our workplace. And you'll see here some of the charts and graphs. I know not readable, but just to get an idea of, it's a lot about visual management and making sure that people understand how they're doing, how the team's doing, how they're doing in comparison to other team members. So this is a key for us. This just goes back to basic communication. And you see the daily team-wide meetings. It says 15 minutes. Some days they may be 5. But these daily stand-up meetings are something that are very important, and it provides a forum to address problems just in time and at a grassroots level for us. It allows communication of issues and solutions to the entire team at one time to ensure consistency of the message. It really promoted teamwork, so we could be sharing best practices, knowledge, and support. It provides a tactical approach, too, to accomplishing the strategic vision. So it breaks strategic vision down to executable tasks at multiple different levels, so whether it was with an individual or a P&L or a program. And it really helps new people integrate into our environment. We have a new person join the team, they very quickly become ingrained in that team dynamic of what Lean is as a part of our recruitment process. In these control charts, there's an example of what one control chart might look like to document that process so that very quickly we could identify when there were changes or bursts within that process so we could proactively address that before maybe a month end or quarter end when sometimes then it might be too late or too much time has expired and it's impacted the customer experience, whether that be the candidate or hiring manager. Problem solving. Problem solving, again, important mechanism. We're familiar with problem solving and identifying recurring issues and trying to solve that problem's root cause. When problems are identified, a process begins to communicate and solve that issue. And so, again, it goes back to that visual management, ensuring that we have that transparency and accountability during this process. And it's about not being afraid to say, gosh, this is something that I realized I did, or a problem I had, problem I have with cycle time, problem I have with sourcing, and found out that through that and through creating that open form of communication, people began to be much more comfortable in sharing their problems because they knew there's a mechanism to help not necessarily call out, but identify a general problem and empower that team then to work together to solve those problems. An example, a little more specifically, of what some of that looked like, when we did have a problem to help manage workload, stop and redeploy workload efficiency, a problem-solving card is open. And so going back to the very basics, paper and pen, but the team member writes a problem description. They answer the question about the frequency, what is the process, how is it affecting compliance, is it affecting the end user experience? And that's a visual, you see it's a red card, so it's a problem. And then there's the problem-solving board, and that card is then added to that board. There are basically 3 phases. You can see we've got an open section, pending, and closed, so that people see how that problem is moving through the process and that there is work being done to address, resolve, and close ultimately that problem. So visual charting was something that was very important to us. Here's a larger example, so you can kind of see what some of the, people always ask, well, what does that mean, individual transparency, and how do you track each recruiter? And we had a mechanism that reported multiple things. I've kind of called out here, but this is an example of a card that would be on, Joe Smith, who's a recruiter. This might be his report card for the week per se. It's updated weekly, and you can see weekly workload. So others can see, gosh, I've got 50 positions open. Seems like that's really heavy. They can very quickly view what do their teammates have open and what does workload look like throughout the department. The diversity numbers, when they have defects within the process, whether that be through offer letters or through a slate that does not provide the candidate that the hiring manager might be looking for. Customer satisfaction, cycle time. So we're charting cycle time trends, so you can see month over month, how is that individual person's cycle time trending, and are they improving, and why are there spikes or changes, and going back to look to see how do we address those, because we had this visual capability to do so. The team managers would work with the individuals and utilize this report card to help talk through what problems the recruiter may be having, or help identify when a workload may be too light, too heavy, and working with the team to seek help and openly share results about how they've had success when they came upon a similar issue or problem. So in that day-to-day transparency, it doesn't begin immediately. But once Lean is understood by all, it becomes an important visual tool. And people were leery at first, but now they utilize and review their own and others' information to compare the results and get excited about when new information and results are posted. We celebrate successes, and it's just so much easier for us to see potential issues and solve them before the customer even feels the impact, because we were aware before they are. Let me share some of the recruitment results. I've given you a few examples as I've talked through how we've implemented Lean within this program. Let's talk about some of the results. And we always had a process, but it is now much more easily understood by all, and it's followed consistently, and it's easier for others to jump in and help during the process, even if they haven't been involved from day one. And this process is consistent, and it goes down to not only consistency within the process, but how things are stored, maintained, how an individual recruiter's desk is set up. So, for example, if Debbie is out today unexpectedly, and we know she's got some high-profile positions she's working on, it's very easy for anyone on the team to go to Debbie's desk and to very quickly see what does she have scheduled for today, what's in her queue, where's she at on which job she has open, and step in to pick up that slack if possible or needed, versus, well, Debbie's out today, so we're going to add another day's cycle time to this position, let the customer, the candidate, hiring manager wait because there's nothing we can do about it. They're no longer burdened with that problem. You can see that the staffing team members within recruitment, as well as the hiring and HR managers, all are stakeholders within this process, and we defined roles for each of them. So, and there are roles that have, different time frames, so you can kind of see through what might be up through a 60-day end-to-end process some of the activities that might be occurring during that time frame. And although that time frame may fluctuate, and in some cases is lower and or slightly higher, this is kind of our guideline and kind of the rule of thumb that we work to utilize. We redefine and streamline the process and continue to evaluate this on an ongoing basis. So, some real impact from a cycle time standpoint through the course of implementing Lean, our cycle time, post which is measured from posting a position to the time an offer is accepted, moved from 91 to 60 days on average. And again, across all positions, including both entry level and executive level together, kind of a full combination. And through changing the recruiting model, we were able to reduce on-site headcount of the team by 50%. So just huge, and again, not necessarily because we had less positions. You can see the bars represent the number of openings per se, and we still had a consistent number of positions open throughout that process, but we're able to impact, because of the improvements made, the number of people required to support that process. Offer defects, I point out, because that was another area that was an area of concern for us. The total offer defects are averaging about 124 per month. And it could have been something minor, like a wrong zip code on an offer letter, to something that was very critical to, in terms of a wrong salary that might have been listed. That was reduced through the span of a 12-month cycle from 124 per month to 22 per month. So we're getting offers, correct offers, sent to candidates faster with less rework. And overall, it goes back to improving the customer and the candidate experience. So two areas where we had specific hard numbers to measure and communicate our success. Lessons learned. So as we went through this transformation, we did learn some lessons. And there are three key elements to real empowerment within Lean, and accountability, and defining the goals with multiple stakeholders. So get the buy-in and communicate the goals and the accomplishments throughout that process. Don't just tell them what you're going to do and then do it. Keep them apprised and engaged in what's happening and what's exciting about what recruitment is doing within Lean. Trust. Learn from your errors and try storm again and again. Gain the trust you need from your customers. Explain right away that it is a lifestyle change and it does not end. It is something that's ongoing. And input's important, so discuss. Don't stop reevaluation and trying new things. As I said, it's a lifestyle, and feedback venues from the team and the customer is critical. So we may hold a customer feedback session or a kind of a brown bag where we have customers come in to give feedback about the process, or where we actually will just educate them on some of the new things we're doing that they may not even realize within the process that are happening to make theirs and our candidates' experience better. So if I was going to provide you with a readiness checklist, it might look something like this, in terms of just three simple questions to ask yourself. And not everyone will be on board, but you need to help them get there. Or sometimes you must realize when people are not committed. So that unwavering commitment, because there is no end point, and recognizing what's going to happen year one, year two, and within each of those months to ensure that people understand the commitment ahead of them. Empowerment. No one or two people within the recruitment department or area do this alone. It's about teams identifying problems and the solutions and being empowered to learn from their mistakes and make the changes that are right. And team engagement. I mentioned if not everyone's on board, we need to help them get there. And sometimes we have hard decisions to make and realize that these people were not able to work in this environment and under these guidelines. And that was their own choice. They chose that this is not an environment that I can work in. And so we had to make some tough decisions about who ultimately stayed in that team as we did and were able to reduce total number. It came down to who was able to very successfully and readily work within a lean environment, because the environment and culture within the department definitely changes as you're implementing and utilizing these lean philosophies. And lastly, some final thoughts. It's a tool for growth, and think the customer back. Start with the candidate and with the hiring manager. Begin with the end in mind. See business wing to wing. Start with the big picture, and then you begin to break that into sub-processes later. So that initial value stream mapping process, we did end to end. What is our process, and how many steps are in that process? And then we begin to break it into sub-processes and individual Kaizen teams. Lean is a change, and like any change, there's a change management aspect. So energize your employees about that. Prepare them for the change. It's about teamwork. Ensure there's engagement and excitement. Celebrate successes. We implemented, so we had 6 weeks of a 100% compliant on their 5S audit, which means is their desk or workspace 5S'd properly to ensure that we have the ability to step in and pick up where they left off in their absence. We audited that weekly, and if they had 6 weeks in a row of 100% compliance by everyone on the team, we rewarded them, and whether that be a pizza party or off-site team meeting that we were able to do. It's some of those little things that we're able to do that got them excited about looking forward to some of the things and rewards they could reap from working hard to help us implement this lean process. The courage. So even if the stakeholders sometimes think, well, gosh, I implemented this process 10 years ago. What do you mean we have to change it? Or there are individual people on the team who have developed forms or techniques or tools. Doesn't necessarily mean that all tools and the best practices go away, but that everyone needs to be open to evaluating those best practices and tools. And you're pushing people to reach new heights and to think more efficiently and reduce that waste. And basics. Focus on the fundamentals. Don't be afraid to pick off and do some of that low-hanging fruit initially, because that's you want to be able to see some of those short and very quick bursts of success as well. So, what do you do if you're familiar with Lean and using it today? Maybe you got some examples that you can utilize or implement. If you're familiar with Lean but you haven't implemented it within an HR system or strategy, you can learn more about Lean. There are several books that are available. There are some companies that are now offering courses on Lean, similar to what you may have seen within Six Sigma and when we had black belt certifications and different things. Or work with your outsourcing provider or consider partnering with someone who has experience with Lean. I think that was a key for us to ensure that we were working with someone that had some Lean experience. So as we were learning and understanding the philosophy of Lean, we could ask those questions and understand the impact some of the decisions may have as we are continuing or moving forward in that journey. So, learn about Lean, take the time, engage an expert, and create your current state value stream process map. That's probably step one. And when you're doing that, don't forget to engage stakeholders, and not only within your recruitment team, but outside of the recruitment department as well. My contact information is available, so I think you should have the opportunity on your screens to be able to ask a question. We've got a couple minutes. If there are questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those. If you have questions that you think of later or as a follow-up, you can certainly email me, and I'd be happy to try and answer those as well.
Thank you, Zach, very much. Again, if you look at the top of your screen under the Q&A toolbar, you can ask a question directly of Zach at the Q&A toolbar, or you can Also talk on the phone if you'd like and ask a question directly of Zach. And so there's two options for you, and it's a good opportunity to talk to Zach and ask some questions. So everyone can be heard now on the teleconference if you'd like to chime in anytime.
What do you think?
Everyone's so excited about Lean and running back to get it implemented, they can't think of the questions yet, I guess.
Yeah, who has the first question for Zach?
Talk about what they're doing and they don't share it with the rest of us.
Sure, we could hear you. Ma'am, are you there? We could hear you speaking. You wanted to talk about, is it Allison? Bill, Kathy, Cheryl, Marshall, Matt, Rhonda, Sarah, Shannon, Terry, Tom. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, man.
Yeah, I can hear you too, Zach. Hey guys, who has the first question for Zach or just wants to say something in general about the presentation?
Yeah, if you don't have a question, was this helpful? Did you learn something?
We do have a... And Matt, the phone lines are open, so we could hear you guys.
If you're having trouble, Matt, feel free to type your question. I'll do my best to answer it.
Marshall, would we be able to get the slides?
Yes, they'll be available on the website, and we're also going to send the case study to everybody on this.
Okay, great.
Sure.
Yeah, when you see the case study, it'll reference what we've done within healthcare, as well as provide some of the examples I talked about and a kind of high-level overview of the process that we utilized at GE Healthcare.
Any questions about the GE case study? Any questions about talent management in general? We have our talent management group and lab coming up, and feel free to talk about your programs as well. Anybody have a program that they're working on now in talent management you'd like to mention? Give some time to talk about it. Let me ask you a question, actually. Zach, what do you think is the element of your GE case study that would be a standout? If you were to describe it in 1 to 2 sentences to everybody and so you go forward with it in the market, what made it particularly what was the most important critical success factor to that initiative, would you say?
Well, I think we've been pleased with our ability to reduce cost, time, and increase customer experience and quality. And the key for most of the people I talk to is just the numbers. And so you'll see pointed out total offer defects improved by 80%, and just the cycle time improving by over 30%, and the ability to change the recruitment model and reduce on-site headcount by 50%. I mean, huge cost savings without impacting and actually improving the process. So I think those are the things when people see that, they feel they have something to go back to their executive committee or team to say, gosh, here's the success others have had. And these are just 2 examples of results through Lean philosophy. And as they look at their pain points or waste-driven recruitment today, and what their customers tell them about the process, that's some of the ammunition they need to be able to get that engagement or buy-in from their colleagues or leaders within the organization.
What would you say is one of the most important elements of recruitment today in an economy that's obviously in a downward spiral right now? What is it important to think about in terms of when recruiting in this market? How would it transform or help to transition our organizations, especially now? How can we change our mindsets?
I think, obviously the Lean methodology, but one of the key areas we focus on in this economy is sourcing and the time, the process, and the way that we are sourcing. And it's not just about Web 2.0, but it's about how do we handle even though we may have some companies are seeing less positions posted, they're having 2 and 3 times the number of candidates that typically apply. And how are you effective? Do you have the tools in place to effectively and timely review those candidates to ensure that you're pulling and screening to ensure the most qualified candidates appear on that final slate that goes to a hiring manager? And I think that job's become a little more difficult now. So having a very efficient process in place can be helpful there. And just the general vehicle that you're utilizing to recruit in today's economy, I think, is important. And some of the CRM technologies that are now available in utilizing, the social networking and the blogs and some of the other tools, it's kind of a very different way of, it's not just about the standard job boards you're familiar. I mean, they're kind of they can be useful, but it's kind of they're going the way of the newspaper or the job open sign in the window now. So it's are you on top of, and are you taking the time to learn about these tools and utilize them effectively?
We have a question from Terry Dobbs. Terry asks, how long did the process take to implement this new model?
Well, the initial mindset change took several weeks before we could begin our value stream mapping, 3-day current and future state process. And once we completed, we then began to continue to understand 5S and hold others accountable while establishing the Kaizen teams to address waste or inefficiencies discovered from the process. And we had some instant results over the course of the first probably 3 months. But I think that we had an open house 9 months in, where we invited everyone within the company to the staffing department to showcase what staffing looked like now and to kind of take them through a day in the life of a candidate and a requisition. But I would say we probably worked several weeks, and maybe I'd say 8 to 10 weeks in educating ourselves and the other stakeholders on Lean once we did some of our research to know it was what we wanted to do, and then began with this value stream mapping 3-day current event. And through the course of the next probably 3 months, implemented 5S and began to build these Kaizen teams from that value stream mapping event.
So you definitely had a process map for this, so everybody knew what part of the process they were in at all times.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's essential to any successful initiative. Wouldn't you say that is a clear roadmap of where we're moving and knowledge of where we are in the process? It
is, and it goes back to that visual management.
Exactly. Visual management is critical. People feel they're more engaged in the process. She also says, we are currently going to be in the process and have a very aggressive approach. Any suggestions for us to be successful? I guess this kind of goes to what we were just discussing.
Yeah, and again, it's the preparation, not jumping into it too fast, not thinking you understand what a Kaizen project or value stream map is, because I've learned what the icons mean and I know how to describe them. Make sure you understand the philosophies and the principles, and you've got engagement and understanding by your stakeholders. We held several meetings with HR and hiring managers to do just 15-minute downloads to help them understand Lean at a very high level and what it meant to how their world or life might change within recruitment. Again, before we even did anything, we said, hey, it's kind of like the trailer for a new movie that's coming out in 3 months, and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait 3 months. But that's what we did, and it not only helped make them aware, it created some excitement about what they were going to see from us.
Thank you very much, Zach. This is Zachary Misko, Global Director of Kelly-OCG RPO, and his email address is M-I-S-K-O-Z-A, Miskoza, at kellyocg.com, and you can also reach him at 414-815-1822. Zach is a contributor to the Best Practices in Talent Management book that we're publishing with Josie Bass on his case study with General Electric. It's a pleasure to have him on today. Zach, you were terrific. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye now.